already, I turned it to that already, which is
Yeah.
like, okay.
What's that? All right, good evening. Welcome to the City of Sandwich Committee of the Whole. It is Monday, January 20th, 2025, 7 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Sergeant Whitecott, why don't you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderwoman Erickson. Alderman Fritsch is absent. Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Kreinbrink is absent. Alderman Lilbrandt.
Here.
Alderman Robinson is absent. Alderman Whitecotton.
Here. All right, with 5 members of council, we have a quorum. We'll move on to the mayor's report. Before we do so, we've had a request from our economic developer to ask council to consider moving the items under new business on the agenda up to the beginning because of the members here present, plus his attendance. Is anyone opposed to making that amendment to our agenda tonight, moving those items forward under new business? Will someone from council then please make a motion to adjust the agenda as stated?
All motion.
That's Alderwoman Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Littlebrandt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that is approved. We'll move on to item 12, new business. First item is discussion developer agreement for Phase 4 Fairwind subdivision. Let Don go. Don, if you're going to speak to it, will you just sit up here for a bit?
That's where we're at right now.
Jeff, do you want to start the conversation on that?
Certainly. So, Phase 4, Fairwinds, yeah, good. I'll let you go ahead, Don. That's fine. We've been talking with these individuals about Phase 4 Fairwinds and being able to do a development agreement. There's a total of 58 lots up there that we wanted to do. There's a draft agreement in the council packet this time. There is some work that needs to be done to that to refine it a little bit, but I'll let Don talk a little more about it.
Yeah, so we've been meeting with Pat Winger and Matt Christensen, who bought the property. We've been working out the details on an agreement. A lot of language has got to get cleaned up. Pat is here tonight for any questions that aldermen might have. So if you want to have Pat come up, do you have questions directly for Pat? It's better to listen to Pat directly than third party.
Good evening.
You got questions?
Oh,
Adam, you got-
I'm ready to hit this head on if you want. What's that? I'm ready to hit this whole thing head on if you want.
Well, let him go ahead and make his presentation. It's not adversarial here.
Patrick Winninger with Fairwinds Phase 4. And before I start this, just I'll let you know now.
Adam, you don't have the floor. He's going to
Okay.
talk about his projects. Everybody can hear about it, including those present, and then we can ask him questions.
All right, so myself and Matt Christensen purchased this property here towards the end of last year. Ryan Holmes was existing in there. They're looking to move into Phase 4 to complete the remaining 58 lots. I don't know how much everybody knows about that, but there's no streets in there, minimal storm sewers in, still need sewer, water, things like that. So we're looking to get in there, get all that stuff installed, and hopefully turn it over to Ryan Holmes to finish completing that subdivision.
Okay. Anyone from council like to?
It'd be okay to have the floor now?
Yes, sir.
God bless. Okay, I actually sat down with Jeff and Don earlier, and I want to start off by saying
in no way, shape, or form am I against the subdivision. It's just the documents we were given were completely incomplete, and I'd be happy to go over that with you.
Yeah, if you got any questions, we could go over whatever you have.
It starts off, comes into the developer agrees to the development and the subject property pursuant to terms and conditions hereinafter and set forth. The problem with that is there's a lot of things missing.
And Adam, if I just made, this is just a draft.
I understand,
yeah,
I'm trying
and
to help
so
him with that.
I prepared a really generic one. His attorney commented on it and made some red lines. I made some further red lines. So, I mean, I don't know if we want to go through the whole agreement right now. I
That's
guess.
up to you, because we have it on committee of the whole, and then it was on council to pass. So if it's only a draft agreement, I don't know why we'd be put on council to pass.
So
The thing
that's,
is,
that goes back to Alderman Robinson's request that we have an item that we carried over just in case action wants to take place. I'm not saying you have to take action.
Yeah.
It's just how it was placed on there.
what I'm trying to do is, we all would like to see this development go forward. So if we could sit and explain what we don't like about the document, would it not help the situation?
That's fine.
I
I
mean,
don't
you
think we
guys
need to
are
go through the whole thing, but if there are areas that you have concerns, you certainly represent that area.
I mean, let's let the cat's out of the bag. It's that easy.
Yeah,
So it comes down to, and this first one's probably a typo. It talks about under zoning, it talks about construction of at least 58 single-family lots. And then lower in the paragraph, it talks about 58 lots. So is it at least, or is it 58?
it's 58 lots. We're looking to keep what's existing plotted there.
Okay. And then in that, it also talks about different variances in zoning and whatnot. The city will accept anything having to do with the final plat. And the only thing I asked is what variances are being asked for and approved?
I don't believe there's any variances.
Okay.
It's the straight R1 zoning.
We go to, on ours it'll be page 44, but on the contract it's 3. Under B, fees, developers shall be obligated to only pay the fees set forth on Exhibit C1. The problem we have is our copy, C1 is completely blank.
Yeah, I believe at the time of execution, that's supposed to be attached. Cassandra sent those to us in an email, so we just need to attach those.
The one thing is, we wanted to make sure that all of the fees from the code are properly laid out on that exhibit, rather than having to go through the code 100 different times to make sure every fee is there. So we have this same fee schedule that we were using with Ryan Homes. And I think
there's two pieces of that, Adam. I think there's making sure we didn't overlook a fee, and also because this was part of our original development, and there's a piece of that that we didn't
And I'm fine with
duplicate
that.
or
All I'm saying is
double charge.
we want a complete document.
Yep.
And that's all it is. Far too often, when we look through previous annexation agreements, we go from that annexation agreement to that annexation agreement because none of them were correct and none of them were filled out the way they should have been. And the only way for us to start the first step forward, doing things the correct way, is let's get the document correct before it's passed. And that's the only thing that I'm bringing up. That's what I brought to Jeff and Don.
Okay, yep.
And then in the same paragraph, it talks about Exhibit C2, which our Exhibit C2 is blank. We don't even have anything to look at. Under final engineering plans, our exhibit is blank. Then we get down to item E, which would be page 4 or 45 under our agenda. Connect to existing water service. Water and sewer service shall be provided to the property by the city. When I have read previous annexation agreements, it literally spells out in an annexation agreement who is providing, installing, paying for infrastructure. When I read this annexation agreement, it doesn't state anywhere who is providing, paying for all the infrastructure that's going to be going in that subdivision. Nothing it says in here, so we don't, I
Like
don't know if
what?
the city's.
like
So
what's
you've got
I mean, because I think.
Infrastructure, you have water, you have storm, you have sewer.
And so I think this is, what we're saying is the extent of what we're gonna do.
It doesn't say that.
That
It
we're
says they're going
going
to
to
hook
be.
to our stuff.
Well,
Does that
we
mean we're
will,
putting the stuff in for them? to
Correct, the
hook?
developer will put everything in. Yeah,
And
typically we
I
see it
just-
both ways, whether they spell it out or not. More times or not, if the city's gonna be responsible for a part of it, they spell it out versus, you know, saying that we're responsible for everything, which, since we're developing it, we'll be responsible to install all that stuff.
I just like to see it in the document then. Stormwater management. I know there have been some previous issues in Fairwinds regarding the ponds, and close to Phase 4 is the one pond. And I know there have been some issues with it. In this paragraph here, it says that the developer is let off of anything having to do with that pond. But in talking to Jeff and Don, there have been previous conversations that you're going to talk to the HOA about possibly doing something with the pond.
Yeah, we've talked to the HOA about helping them fix any of the issues on the pond. More specifically, is there's a little bit of an issue with the outfall on the pond, and then a little bit of erosion around the flared end sections, which we agreed to provide some riprap and stuff like that to take care of that.
Is there anything that you're gonna provide to the city in agreement with the HOA? Because that's in Ward 2. That's something that I'm gonna have to get emails on and calls and stuff on regarding that.
No, specifically, we weren't looking to get it spelt out in the development agreement because it's not city-owned. Since it was owned by the HOA, we were just working with the HOA directly to get it rectified.
Okay. Another one, under J, public improvement bonds. Developer shall post a bond irrevocable letter of credit with the city in the amount of 110% of the cost of the roadway. Final lift is accepted from that bond,
That should be included within the bond.
but it is clearly left out of the bond on the
Yeah,
contract.
yep.
I wasn't sure if you had the one that had my comments on it or not. Because I had made these same comments on it, so,
They're not on our.
okay, then that makes sense.
It should be in there, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't, I don't know why we got a document that there wasn't in there. So park donation land cash. We all know because early phases of Fairwinds, the building crash happened then. The developer went bankrupt, the bank had to finish doing the property. I just wanted to make sure there was this cash somewhere.
so I have a comment on my version that says I don't believe that that part is actually accurate, and so we were looking into that. Because it says that it has already been paid, and so we're not sure, obviously, because the fourth part was vacated, that we, at least as of now, have not been able to locate.
So my question to you is if they find that those funds were not produced to the park district, is that something you guys would be,
Well, since the park and everything was there, we're under the understanding that all the park land cash and everything like that's been taken care of.
And that's, we just haven't been able to find confirmation of that, so that's what we have to look into.
okay. And this is oversizing off-site improvements and whatnot, and Kurt isn't here, because Kurt is who I was gonna ask these questions to. Because typically when a subdivision is built and we put in storms, sanitary and stuff like that, and we know there's a subdivision that's going to be tying into it at a later date, we typically try to build that infrastructure to take what's going to be coming from the incoming new subdivision. Because it states in here that if anything oversized or anything has to be installed, that the developer is not.
Yeah, and so I agree with you. The other comment I had made, and what I have seen in other aspects, is that the city would pay the difference. If we required the oversized pipe for our purposes, we would pay the difference. So I have a comment, and I have that
Who pay the
highlighted.
difference in materials?
Yeah, from the regular size to whatever we're requiring them to size up to. So that's typical, and so that was a comment that I also
Okay.
Everything on site should accommodate what we're looking to put in there, just because it is phase 4 of a master plan. Is the way we look at it in V3. We retain V3, who originally engineered everything also.
Okay, and these next couple are just gonna be because the documents are incomplete. Recapture fees, it talks about recapture fees, exhibit C1, C2, building permits, exhibit C1, C2, which are both blank, we have nothing. Occupancy certificate, it talks about the occupancy certificate, if you're not able to get sidewalks in, driveways in, and I wanted something from our building department that stated that they were good with that. And that's all I want okay by Ian. That's it. Once again, number 8, under building permits, C1, C2. C1 and C2 are referenced throughout this document, which is what the big sticking point on them being blank. Another one, binding effects agreement recording. It talks to where at any point you can sell this development to whoever you want. And this agreement may be assigned without the city's prior written approval. And last thing we want to do is bring a subdivision into this town that at any point the developer decides, I'm done, and they can go hire anyone they want, take over their subdivision, and the city has no say in it. Because there's some shady builders out there.
Oh,
There
yeah.
really are. So I would have to think that when it comes down to any agreement, that's anything that's going to affect the city of Sandwich, that the city should have a little bit of say in, especially considering a lot of that subdivision deals with our infrastructure.
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, we have no desire or intention to develop this and sell it right away. I mean, we're here to see it through. We're both local. I'd have to look into that a little bit more, with
Okay.
legal, and see the best way to, put that in there.
Okay, and all this goes back to number 14 under conflicts. It written, everything is under the terms and provisions of agreement shall supersede control. Thing is we were given an incomplete term and agreement of everything, so you really can't agree to that. Once again, number 18, to breach of agreement. We don't have a complete document, so we don't know what is being breached, what isn't being breached, what costs are what, yours, ours, that's what I have. Well, there's one other thing. One thing you don't spell out in here, you do talk about SWEPs. The only time you talk about SWEPs is under fences, stormwater protection. At a certain point, it's going to leave developer and go to builder. At no point do you guys talk about where the transfer of SWEPs is going to go, because the SWEPs is going to be under your permit. At what point do they take the permit? Because they're gonna have to have filter, they're gonna have to have baskets in our storms, they're gonna have to watch out for it from there on.
We'll be responsible, we'll have the MPDES permit held in the entire development. So until they're complete, we're responsible for all the SWIP and SWIP reporting.
Okay. Good enough.
Okay, other questions, concerns from council? Okay. Anything from the developer, any other comments?
Nope, that should be it. I think we've got some stuff to work through,
Yeah.
and, look forward to getting it put together and getting it resubmitted.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close. I emailed Rick last week, and so this was just to, I guess from my perspective, to get everyone here on board with what's going on. But again, because of the way we're doing the meetings now, in case we were able to, I wasn't able to connect with Rick last week. And so because we wanted to be able to approve it if we could. But yeah, the fees are the same as what we've been using for Ryan Homes. I have an email, I can provide that to you guys. I think someone in the office probably has it as well, but
Yeah, we've got a copy of it also from you.
yeah. So,
Okay.
Once again, we're happy to see this subdivision come in.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited. We'll get this worked up and back over to you guys and go from there.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right, B, this is discussion on the pre-annexation agreement for 21 Gleddy Road.
Yes, Mayor, we were approached by Mr. Arneson, the owner of the property, and by Nathan Fay's Barbecue, about using the property. The county, they went to the county referred them to us, and the county would prefer that we would take over jurisdiction on this property and managing the businesses that are about to come. Mr. Giasecki is here representing Mr. Arneson tonight, and Nathan Fay's here to talk about the business. We've had a lot of discussions. We had a site visit. Ian and I went and met Nathan out at the building, and he explained in detail what we're gonna do. And Ian explained in detail what he needs in drawings to get it to go forward. There is the county wants an intergovernmental agreement in which we would have jurisdiction, meaning inspections and safety issues and things like that. We're willing to do that. They've been easy to work with. It makes a lot of sense. The zoning out there is the same, is equivalent from reading. It's BC and DeKalb County zoning. It's called BC. It's very comparable to B1 zoning for the city of Sandwich. So everything kind of lines up in that way. And they're both here tonight to explain the project to you in more detail if you'd like.
Yeah, why don't we just have them come up, Don, just to explain a little bit about that, then we'll have our attorney talk about the annexation, pre-annexation agreement.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me your business?
Tom Gieske, I work with Doug Arneson. I'm here representing him tonight. Doug's had the property for 3 to 4 years now, and we're just trying to figure out something we can do to help generate some income off of it, instead of the property just sitting there dormant.
This is old Heartland Bank, so everyone's aware, right? Okay. Okay, and then the proposed business then, or?
Yeah, Nathan Fay with Fay's Barbecue, and my father Jim Fay as well. We approached Doug and Tom to look at, we've been doing a drive-through, pop-up drive-through in Waterman at 2330 if you go north. And looked at Sandwich as a very, or that corner is a very high-traffic area. I mean, not necessarily Route 34 traffic, but pretty darn close. And our business is very, or what we've done for Waterman is we've been averaged about 400 meals on a Friday just in car traffic. And so we looked at the, well, 4-lane drive-through got me all excited. So instead of 2 in Waterman with a gravel drive. So approached him with that, and we're kind of, that's the goal is to, main thing is just to get drive-through going, and then if we do anything, will be like phase 1 and 2 to maybe have some type of quote-unquote dine-in. But right now, we're not looking to do the dine-in right away. Just want to get the doors open. Already, the health department's already, you guys have been aware, I've already got drawings to them. So the DeKalb County Health Department will kind of mainly see what things, kitchen-wise, we're not gonna put a lot of cooking aspect, but we'll have our grills outside, of course, as have you guys seen at the fair and all the years that we've been in Sandwich for all these years. So we see that the city is very open to, or at least people in Sandwich are very open to our product, and so we just see that could be a very big opportunity, and we'll probably be looking at, we say 2, but maybe 3 days a week. So that's kind of a little bit what we're looking to do. So kind of, it's a, excuse me, it's a little bit more when you start to get into the commercial side and doing all the preliminary stuff. So we're working on getting all our architects coming in and getting that all ready so that we can get a permit. We are going to be open for 1 day. The county is I got to fill out some paperwork for the Super Bowl.
we will be doing a drive through that day. So, and it's kind of technically county still because of the pre-annexation and everything. So we will be doing party packs and doing that. And because I'm a caterer, I can technically cook it or cook outside, but I can go to a vacant building and cater a one-time meal, if you want to say, temporary type of thing, you know, so, but that's why we'll do it for the Super Bowl, was Sunday, from 12 to 4, but then the other, then we'll have to wait until we get our permits and all that to be officially open, so.
So if I could summarize this, the owner and the business owner desires to be in Sandwich. We're not quite there yet, so we've entered in agreements with the county to allow us to do the pre-annexation agreement so that we can move toward a long-term business relationship with the owner and the business.
Yeah, and so I'll just say, on the county and the city, we dealt with this in Waterman as well. Went to the county and they, because of the way those, how do you want to say it? Their zonings, they want a what they call it, in the city, the county wants a, what do you call it, special use permit. Just, even though that it is a drive-through right now, but a bank, but because it's a restaurant, they wanna, and it takes us 6 to 8 months to go through all that whole process through the county, so I called them and end up, they immediately said, well, why don't you talk to the city of Sandwich? So that's kind of why we're here.
Yeah, we had a joint city-county meeting, I don't know what it was, 6, 8 months ago, about other properties that have the same desire and how we would work that out over time as we get closer to those properties through the annexation process.
Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim Fay, and I was there and we started, that's a sandwich fair in 62. So what we discovered in 2020 with the COVID, that drive-throughs were still working, few other things, and all of our events were canceled. And I was a part owner of the Faye's Pork Chop Barbecue that was at the fair, but I also did little side jobs with my wife and my kids. And so we needed the money, so we said, well, what should we do? So let's get this abandoned building on 23 and 30. Nobody really realizes it's brown, nothing there. And so we got a permit to do an event out there on Friday, and we found a demand for people wanted to get the meal and go home. You know, we don't want to go in a restaurant, and they got used to taking more than McDonald's, more than, I don't speak negative McDonald's, but so we found tapped into something we felt that goes good, and that we're not restaurant people, we're catering type of people. So I don't know if it'll work out, but we kind of like the idea of a bank because it has the lanes already. So, thank you.
Okay, any questions from council? Then we'll have our legal counsel just give us an overview of the pre-annexation agreement.
Sorry, I didn't bring any samples.
Yeah.
All right, any questions from council first? Okay.
So just a couple things. We have, long before my time, there is an agreement with the county for Our Savior's Lutheran Church that is technically county property, but there's an intergovernmental agreement between the county and us where we take over the jurisdiction of it. This property is, as Don said, currently zoned BC, which is like a business conservation district, and it's a specific special zoning to keep in line with the comprehensive plan that we have. This is part of Sandwich in the, whatever year, I can't remember what year we did the big comprehensive plan, but this is a parcel that is to be considered and eventually become part of the city. And in that, it is zoned commercial. So this is in line with where the future of Sandwich is. The issue is that this property is not currently contiguous with the city, and so we can't do an annexation agreement at this time. And so what we have proposed is a pre-annexation agreement, pretty simple, straightforward, that would go into effect along with the intergovernmental agreement, which I have shared that with Derek Highland. He is speaking to the county about that, and I'll get back with everyone on their comments on that. But this is essentially, we all agree that when it becomes possible, they're gonna come in to the city. And that's really what this comes down to. And then the other agreement with the county will be that we will have the jurisdictional control to, you know, approve all the zoning and things like that. But until it is contiguous, meaning some of the other properties get annexed in, it's still gonna be county property, just like the church. So,
I only have one small problem. I don't have a problem with you guys at all. I just have a problem with writing on this. It's under number 5, rules and regulations to apply. Owner agrees that he will at all times abide by all rules, regulations, and ordinance of the city. Right after that, it says, which may be in effect from time to time. And last I checked, our rules, ordinances, and regulations were in effect all the time.
that's legal language that is typical in these types of agreements. So from time to time means the rules that are in place right now, and also the rules that'll be in place in 15 years from now. And it doesn't mean just the rules that are in place now, because if we change our ordinances in however many years, that would still apply to them. If we didn't have this legalese in here, it would essentially mean that they're only subject to the laws and regulations as of the date that that's signed. So that's, I mean, you guys can do whatever you want in an agreement that you want, but my legal advice would be to leave that language in there.
You lawyers.
Yep, you're right. That's what we do.
Don, any final comments, or Jeff?
Well, I just want to thank Mr. Fay for coming out, but I want him to share his goal for Super Bowl Sunday. Go ahead, share your goal for Super Bowl
Oh,
Sunday.
we did almost 4,000 wings in Waterman, so our goal is to do 5 to 6 in Sandwich and 4 or 5 in Waterman. So it'll be over 10,000 wings on Super Bowl Sunday, so.
I think this is our 3rd year that
Yeah.
we've done
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Can't call it Super Bowl. It's the
Oh,
big
sorry,
game,
it's
the big game, you
Super
know.
Football Sunday, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
We would then have to pay the NFL a lot of money to
and
use
so-
that name.
So people have parties and they want to treat and make something interesting. We've developed wings, which we've never had at the fair and thing, but we developed grilled wings, and then we can use our barbecue sauce and other stuff on it. So that's our, we don't know what the numbers are gonna be. Maybe it depends on the weather. We've had good weather both Super Bowls the last 2 years, so we'll see. It might make a difference, but it's that time of day where we can still do it during the day, and then we're done at 4, and then go see the game, so that's it. That's how it works.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question
Oh,
for our
yes.
lawyer, not for
Oh.
the guys.
You can have a seat, it's a attorney
Thank you.
question.
It was
Thank
just, it was, you said the pre-annexation and there's an idea of when. Like, do we have a timeline at all? Is there a 6-month?
We don't, because it depends on how land comes into the city and also some of the resources that we need over time. So there is not a plan. Don constantly works with different landowners and different businesses as they may or may not desire to come into the city, and the timing of that sometimes is dependent upon things that are beyond our control.
And I will say that I think the idea and the hope is that this will entice maybe some of those properties in between to want to annex. But it's just it's a process,
Okay.
so.
When
Okay.
the actual annexation comes up, we are going to get another set of documents like this on the actual annexation, correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. This is just basically memorializing everyone's intent that this is what we want to happen for the city and for them as well.
Okay. Item C, is there anyone here for item C?
Not that I saw.
Okay, do either Jeff or Don, you want to cover just what that is, why we, because we moved all this up in our agenda?
Sure. Item C is an issue that went before the Plan Commission. That was a couple weeks ago. Cassandra, you were in attendance, correct?
Yes.
We had a request from a business owner there to be able to use a property at 1208 Old Route 34
It's the
for
old
residential
Chicago
use.
title, correct?
Pardon me?
Old Chicago title.
I believe so, yes. So that went to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission, I believe, was split 2-2 and then had one abstain. So they,
It was denied.
It was denied, I'm
not-
sorry,
the
okay.
Commission did not vote in favor.
Okay,
I don't
thank you.
remember what it was.
All right, so it's moved to
Yes.
council. Is there a staff recommendation on this?
Just to clarify, there was residential usage in that building. There was a family living there. The owner had rented it. And we became aware of it through the school district when they went to register for school.
Correct.
And that started this whole investigation. So the Plan Commission voted 3-2 not to allow it. And I think we would recommend the same. That, you know, we'd ask the council that was built for commercial usage.
So recommendation is that stays commercial. Okay. Item D, that is our sweepstakes ordinance. That is before council for first reading, unless you wish to take action. That was from our conversation about sweepstakes machines that mimic legal gaming machines. So we've asked our attorney to draft that up for your consideration. You could vote as early as tonight if you'd like. You certainly can take your time to read through it and see if we need some further corrections, or we're simply ready to go, and that way it can be enforced. Cassandra, you have any comments?
No, I got this ordinance from,
Shh, don't give out your secret.
no, I reviewed the Illinois gaming website, because they consider these sweepstakes machines to be illegal. And so, I started there and I reviewed a couple other codes.
we
And I think this
consulted-
is in line with what would be best for the
We
city.
consulted with the gaming board.
Yes.
And they gave us some guidance as well.
Yes.
Didn't mean to step over there. Okay, that will return us back to our regular portion of our agenda. That is the mayor's report. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we should acknowledge his steps that he's taken with others in the civil rights movement for our nation. Allowed him to do his work and change some of the liberties that are enjoyed today. Also want to recognize that today's Donald J. Trump was sworn as the 45th and 47th president. I'd remind you that we quite often work with the federal government on many of our projects and our funding, as well as Representative Underwood, Senator Rezin, Representative Davis, and Congressman LaHood's office. So keep that in mind, that although there's a change of power, we will still continue to pursue opportunities as they exist and that we're eligible for those. I have much more to say, but I think that's enough. So we'll move on with our reports. Clerk EE has asked that, attorney's report.
I don't have anything on this. Most of what I want to talk about will be in the regular meeting.
Okay, Clerk EE.
Okay, just briefly, I mentioned at the last meeting that food vendor trucks are up for renewal, and my question to the council was, do you want to restrict how long a truck should remain at a certain location? I have received some complaints where some of the trucks have been there for days and weeks on end. So if you want to change it, it will have to be by ordinance, but I'd like some kind of decision made so I can start the renewal process again.
So I agree with Clerk EE. There are some vendors that have taken advantage of what we originally intended that seem to be more permanent than temporary. So I think we should look at some time frame in which they are there, whether it's days or it's an event that doesn't exceed, or a festival doesn't exceed a time frame. I've also ran into issues where the business owner will have the food truck come to their property, but they may or may not be in compliance. I believe we need to go back to and look at any citations that would be issued to the vendor as well as the owner who actually has invited them. I see them as equal in the process of bringing someone to the property that is not properly licensed either by the city or by the health department. So I think we need a couple of different changes to our food truck as we continue to make that ordinance better for all. We also want to make sure that we don't shortchange our brick and mortar businesses, which is probably the biggest concern that we have, as well as those that are doing business or paying their taxes.
I just have one comment or question, I suppose. Are we gonna look into what other cities might be doing in that regard in terms of how long we should be allowing it, or?
Jeff, did you look into that when you researched?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so we can. We'll take a look at that and see if the other ones do something similar.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, comments?
That's it for me.
I have a comment on it. I don't have a question. You all know that I get to go to Michigan and work for the summer, and they have a little plot of land that nobody wants to build on, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple of those here in Sandwich. And there's a bunch of food trucks all stationed there with a brewery on it. So anybody can come into the Rennick or with the center, get whatever kind of food they want, have a beer, listen to music, and it's a really awesome way to bring people into the city. So when we're talking about restrictions on making them move every 5 minutes, I want you to think that maybe too, that we can go the opposite route and give them an opportunity to do something cool. And also, if we're going to restrict, or, you know, if they want to stay there for longer, I mean, maybe the fee is just more. I don't really want to put too many restrictions on things.
Yeah, I think Jeff has some other ideas he'll bring back next month about some longer-term opportunities for different vendors. But this one, I think that Denise is thinking about, has probably been there for 6 months. That's a little too long to be what I think we intended as a mobile food vendor. Good?
Nope, to be honest with you, I'd like to, and this would tie into food trucks, is business licensing.
Yes. Jeff has an answer for you.
Does he?
Okay, Jeff does have an answer. Jeff and I have been talking about this for about 6 months. One of the softwares that he has brought in has the capability to license businesses. Not so much that we want to restrict their business, but we have issues in which the police department may need to contact them for emergency purposes. We may have a complaint and we don't know who the actual owner is, and we may have some other issues about maybe who is using the property and when. We believe once the software is there, we'll be able to bring it back to council with the proposal of licensing businesses where the first year may be free, and then thereon it's a modest fee for just our administrative cost to process, whether it's $10 a business or $20 a business. But before we have that conversation, we're going to meet with the Chamber of Commerce. We do have a liaison, it's Alderman Robinson, to talk with them about that, because they represent most of the businesses, but not all of those. And we think it's a good idea to have it as well. Plano does that. So as soon as we get the software up and running that we need, we believe we have that capability. Same page. It's a good idea. Okay, other comments from council? All right, moving on to our city administrative report. Jeff, let's go ahead and let Steve give his presentation so you can
I'm
be on the road if you need to.
have Steve Dennison come up and give us an update on the wastewater treatment facility improvement project.
And then we'll go back to the administrator's report afterwards.
I can cover that in the next meeting.
Okay?
I have a one-pager that is a summary. I'm going to try to keep this succinct.
We'll share.
Yeah.
You got enough?
Do you have enough? Okay,
All right.
thank you. I guess I'm gonna turn this off.
Thank you.
All right, I know the last wastewater plant update was done by Chris Buckley. I am not Chris Buckley, but you know me. Thank you. But you know me, I'm Steve Dennison. I've been here talking about a number of things, water and wastewater, throughout the last several months and years. So I am here to give you a brief update on the wastewater plant improvements, which is a significant project for the city, and it is nearing completion. So I broke it up into different sections, this one pager here. First of all, from a regulatory standpoint, it's important to note that the wastewater plant is compliant with all the NPDES permit requirements. I think there was an article that was published not too long ago that made mention of the fact that it was compliant with the 1.0 milligram per liter total phosphorus discharge limit by December 1st. So that was a major milestone and a lot of what the construction was aiming to do. So that was great to see we were able to meet that. It is currently meeting that limit without the aid of chemical feed, which is fantastic for right now. The staff there is doing a great job of trending things, sampling, trying to figure out the best ways, the most cost-efficient ways of maintaining that discharge limit, so kudos to them. Not sure, you know, if that will continue in perpetuity. There is chemical there to be able to help meet that limit if needed, but obviously want to avoid that because it comes at an operational cost. A reminder that there is a future requirement of 0.5 milligrams per liter phosphorus limit by January 1st, 2030. So the intent is this facility become operational, be able to track and trend things over a few years, identify whether any additional improvements are needed to meet that 0.5 requirement. Obviously, the hope is that no, but there's going to be a period of time here for them to look at things and determine whether any additional improvements are necessary. But there are a lot of provisions that were put in as part of this project that will get them most, if not all the way there to be able to meet that limit. From a construction status perspective, I noted the major items that were included with this project, and that almost every single one of these components is operational now. The one that is not, there's 4 oxidation ditch aerators that are to be replaced. There's 2 oxidation ditches at the plant. The work in one of the ditches is done. The other one is not. It is currently empty. Staff is working on getting some solids removed from the bottom of that tank so that the contractor can finish their work in that tank. So we're anticipating that to occur over the next month and a half or so. From a schedule perspective, the original substantial completion date, meaning everything operational, was to be December 25th. That was because of the delays, because of the oxidation ditch, and also some equipment fabrication delivery items. That was extended out to February 28th, and then the final completion date, which would include final restoration, has been extended from February 23rd to May 1st. Important to note here that there is no anticipated increases to construction or engineering costs due to this time extension. From a cost perspective, you can see the original contract cost, construction cost there was $11,965,000. Through previous change orders, was increased by just over $100,000. And then there is an estimated final change order that is still being ironed out right now, but we anticipate that to be just over $32,000. And so the estimated final construction cost is going to be a little over $12.1 million, which is a 1.2% increase from the original contract cost. Any additional money, we know is not great. We don't want to spend extra money, but there's things that happen in construction. I'm sure those of you who are in that world understand that there's a lot of unknowns, especially at a wastewater plant when you're doing a lot of digging, and you find soils and piping that you may not have known was there, and other things that come up in construction. So to put some perspective on it, the industry standard for similar projects is 5 to 10%. So from that perspective, we're very happy with where we stand right now. We're going to continue to hold the contractor accountable and to make sure that we're not increasing costs any more than are noted here.
Although we've had plus and minuses along the way, 2 things stand out, I think, over the project, and Jeff would probably know more. We did have some additional costs when we tried to work out some of our electrical configuration out there to make sure that we did bring the solar field there, that was worked out. I believe we found an old foundation that was not on any map that we had to pay extra for to have that removed and mitigated. So those are just some things I can think of. I wasn't on, most of the calls because I'm not part of the project team, but those are things that add to those costs that were unforeseen.
Yeah, the one other item thank you, that's absolutely correct. The one other item that came up was, while there was a contractor in there doing pavement restoration of work of some of the roadways within the wastewater plant that had to be modified as part of this construction, due to the condition of the remaining roads, there was more extensive pavement work done within the facility. It just made sense. There's a level of efficiency when the contractor's already in there doing some of the work to get that done. So, yeah, those are a few of the highlights for reasons for increase in costs in the project.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Dennison and EEI? Okay. Look forward to completion.
We all do, yep. And hopefully there should be an opportunity to have folks down at the wastewater plant at some point by the project completion, so folks can walk around and take a look and get a big whiff of success down there, so.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
optimism. All right, EMA report, Tony Everly.
So on January 12th, the Sandwich EMA team had its first of hopefully many more to come volunteer appreciation days of all the time that our EMA staff volunteers. Want to send a thank you to Harvest Chapel for providing the venue for the location as well as food for the team on that day. So hopefully we'll have many more of those to talk about our accomplishments. We even had a year in review of the weather for 2024, so hopefully this will be a continuing thing.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Questions for Tony? All right, thank you. All right, Chief Sunny.
Okay, just a couple things. Our Police Explorers applications, they're now being accepted. Looking to do interviews the week of February the 17th, and still on target to looking to have our first meeting on March the 15th of 2025. Sergeant Eisburn, he's completed his first week in staff in command. And then Officer Lundstein, he's going to be going to our midnight shift starting on January the 25th with Sergeant Fosnot to finish up his field training. And then he is projected to go to Sergeant Meisner's shift to be the third officer on that shift in March. The Police Commission completed their interviews for police officers. They had one interview for a lateral officer. There were originally 3. 2 of the lateral officers decided that they did not want to go any further in the process. Then they interviewed 16. There were 16 scheduled interviews for the new officer list. One person decided not to show up for their interview. And then they also, so there's actually 17. And then they also ended up, after the interview, they eliminated, there was 5 individuals that did not go on past that process. So there are currently 11 entry-level officers on an eligibility list. They have until January the 28th to submit preference points, and then a final eligibility list will be created off of that. The lateral individual, he has been placed on the lateral list. We are actually going to begin his background check later on this week to move him on in the process to see where we are, because we still are down 1 officer. The next Coffee with the Cop is going to be on January 29th at 8 a.m. at Dearborn's. Sergeant Eisenberg is putting on this event, and then we will look to have the Coffee with the Cops and then the Chiefs meeting on a quarterly basis. It's also Coffee with the Cop, Pop with the Cop, depending on if it's a daytime sergeant or a evening sergeant. Our yearly department meeting is going to be on the 17th. We're going to be looking to give out our yearly awards, which include our traffic stop officer of the year, our DUI officer of the year, and employee of the year. We're also going to be giving out 2 Valor recipients of the year too for that. And then I did provide you guys with the monthly reports. A couple things I just want to highlight in there is some of the training that we did during the month there. Officer Bright, he attended ALICE training, so he is now ALICE trained for the school. He's actually an instructor for that. And then just community events. Again, we had the Santa event, which was good. Sergeant Meisner, if you looked, he did a demo at the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, which was well attended by individuals there. And then a significant instance, I just want to note the 2 that happened there. We did have a sex offender arrest in which on a regular call, we noted that a person who was a registered sex offender was not in compliance, meaning that he had not registered. We actually ended up charging that individual with failure to register as a sex offender and unlawful residency of a child sex offender because he was residing within 500 feet of the school. We've done some follow-up. He is no longer at that residence. He's actually registered in another town to the east of us. And then also just we had talked about the break-ins that happened at Whitaker at the auto salvage and some of the damage at the Moose Lodge. Officer Hagelin was able to identify 4 juveniles in which they were charged appropriately for their events in there. There's the SRO school report, just to look into seeing what the school resource officer is doing there. And then just another thing, Sergeant Meisner also had 1 K-9 deployment during the month, and we had 8 FOIA requests during the month. And then just looking at the overall statistical analysis, I'm not going to go too deep into them. There's nothing that I'm concerned about in dips or anything. We're still very heavily proactive. For the month, it was obviously a slower, colder month for us too. Our calls to service were down just a little, but that's okay. The breakdown for the calls for service per week, very interesting to note that Monday nights were busy for us. Majority of our calls happened on Monday night, but overall evenly spread there still. And then just wanted to share again, we had almost 1,800 calls of service for the month, and then our yearly total, we had 19,481 calls for service for the year, with the vast majority of them, as I've spoken before, being proactive policing as opposed to reactive policing on that. The other thing I just want to talk about, next council meeting, I'm going to look to be bringing the kind of a yearly report for you guys, and then also be looking to bring the next purchase of a squad car. That would be the second one that was approved in the budget. Bring that forward for you guys to look at next month. And then, as always, just want to remind everybody of the community dashboard, and then also our homepage too, which has lots of information. And then the last thing I always do is want to thank the officers for the work that they do day in and day out. Questions?
All right, thank you, Chief. We'll move on to item C. As you know, Sergeant Daniel Whitecotton, Sandwich Police Department, had the opportunity to attend the staff, the Public Safety School of Police Staff and Command class that he had completed. Part of that process is that he participated in a staff study presentation. I do want to compliment you on using citations that are relevant and new. That's always important when you give a presentation. So we'll have Sergeant Whitecotton make his presentation. You may ask questions of him when he's finished. All right, Sergeant Whitecotton.
Thank you for having me. As the mayor said, I just completed staff and command through Northwestern University, and we do a lot of things there. There's a lot of assignments, there's a lot of papers that you have to do, but you have to do one big one. They call that a staff study. And so I did the staff study on it's a personnel allocation study. In this study, it focuses on a few different things. It's a lot of sworn personnel that I focus on, but I also focus on command structure as well as support services. So we'll start into the slideshow here. If you could go to slide 1. So I just gave a little overview. This is police departments nationwide are currently facing significant challenges with the short staffing levels. These problems can impact the ability to carry out essential functions. Shortage of personnel can lead to increased workloads for existing staff, resulting in longer response times, decreased community engagement, higher stress levels among staff. Sandwich Police Department is no different than many other departments across the nation. So about a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer, at one point, we were down to 8 officers. We had, unforeseen officers that left, injuries, military deployments. So we were stretched very thin. As Chief said, we're up at 14 out of 15, so we're on the right track. But I wanted to look and see where our numbers should be, and I'm going to get into exactly how I did that. Can we go to the next slide? So just some facts about the Sandwich PD currently. We're currently authorized to have 15 full-time sworn officers. The population of the city is approximately 7,300 residents. In 2023, the department handled 12,206 total calls for service. And currently, we have a minimum of 2 officers on duty per shift. So how I did this research, there's a few different formulas. There's not one that's the standard above the other, but I went with the FBI recommendation. And their recommendation is 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents for cities with populations under 10,000. So when I did the numbers, crunched the numbers, Sandwich was slightly below the average at 2.05. But if you go by that formula, according to the FBI, they recommend that the Sandwich Police Department should have 18 sworn officers based on the population. Also part of my research, what I did, I compared Sandwich to 4 other towns. I picked a town to our west, I picked a town to our east, I picked a town to our north, and to our south. And so I'm just gonna break down what I learned from each town. So again, Sandwich, 15 sworn officers. We work 12-hour shifts, and 1 chief, 4 sergeants, 10 patrol officers, and 1 of those officers is an SRO. Currently, we do not have a detective, a full-time detective. We plan on filling that when we get up to staff, which we're getting close. We have 2 civilian employees for the support staff. One of the departments that I did some research on was Mendota. And they have 18 sworn officers. 14 of those officers are full-time. They have 4 part-time officers. They work a little bit different shifts than we do. Their days and afternoon shifts work 8 hours, and their midnight shifts work 10 hours. They have one chief, one deputy chief, 3 sergeants, and they also have an SRO, and they currently do not have a detective position, and their population was at 7,200. Then I compared Peru, Illinois PD. They have 28 sworn officers. They work 12-hour shifts. They have 1 chief, 2 lieutenants. One's an admin lieutenant, one's a patrol lieutenant. They have 5 sergeants, 4 patrol sergeants. They have 1 detective sergeant, 4 detectives, 1 SRO, 16 total patrol officers. They have 1 non-sworn community service officer and 1 non-sworn evidence custodian, and they are at 10,000 for population. Sugar Grove, they have 14 full-timers, 9 part-timers. They work 8-hour shifts. They have 1 chief, 1 deputy chief, 3 sergeants, 1 detective, 1 SRO, 2 non-sworn clerks, and their population is 9,259. And the last one I did was Harvard, Illinois PD, and they have 17 sworn officers. They also work 12-hour shifts. They have 1 chief, 1 deputy chief, 4 sergeants, 1 detective, 1 SRO, with a population of 9,500. I actually called and spoke to representatives of each department. I didn't necessarily get this offline. I spoke with somebody that actually works at those agencies. So I broke down the officers per capita. Peru had 2.8 per 1,000. Mendota was 2.5. Harvard was 1.79. Again, we came in at 2.05. And Sugar Grove, with just their full-timers, had 1.51. But if you added up the part-timers, they're at 2.48. And just some key observations, Peru PD, they had the largest department relative to population size. They had a complex command structure, specialized units. Mendota has a slightly higher officer to population ratio than Sandwich, despite a little bit of a smaller population. Sandwich and Mendota are the only departments without dedicated detective positions at this time. Every department had an SRO. Sugar Grove and Harvard have similar population sizes, but differ in staffing, with Harvard having more sworn officers, and Sugar Grove relies more on part-time officers. Now, if we were to consider that option in Sandwich, that would have to be agreed upon with the patrol union. And it just said Peru, Illinois PD stands out with the larger detective unit and additional specialized non-sworn positions. They were the biggest department that I studied. Just some facts. I said 12,206 calls for service. I have 24,635. I know that's a little different than Chief's numbers. Maybe I added wrong. Some time, calls that take up time are mental health and domestic disturbances. And in 2023, we had 173 mental health calls with 95 domestics. And then in 2024, it kind of flipped. We had 98 mental health calls and 152 domestic disturbances. So those are some calls that can tie up officers and take them off the street. So things to consider, things I considered in my study. Is there a need to add more sworn personnel? Is there a need, like I said, I touched on command structure. Is there a need to add a deputy chief's position? And is there a need to add more civilian personnel? Some of the benefits to add sworn personnel would be we could fill that vacant investigator spot. And some of the benefits that would come with that would be more thorough follow-ups, and patrol could spend more time out in the street patrolling. It could cut down on overtime. And in my report, if you read it, I broke down 3 years of overtime and 3 years of vacation payouts. So if you add more officers, it could cut down on overtime. More officers could reduce fatigue, burnout, and like I said, overtime. Officer safety, could have more backup, and schedule flexibility. We have the ability with more officers to send people to training and not reduce coverage in patrol. Benefits of adding a deputy chief. Succession planning. A deputy chief's position would strengthen succession planning and leadership continuity within the department. This would allow the sergeants more time to supervise on the street. Currently, the sergeants are responsible for a handful of ancillary duties, and so a deputy chief could take on some of those and allow the sergeants to supervise the officers on the street. And it would enhance command structure. Deputy chief would enhance the command structure, improving decision-making process and allowing for more efficient distribution of administrative and operational responsibilities. This role would enable the chief to focus more on strategic initiatives and community partnerships, while the deputy chief would manage the day-to-day operations. The benefits of adding more civilian personnel: increase efficiency, support staff can handle administrative, clerical, and non-law enforcement tasks, freeing up sworn officers to focus on core policing duties such as patrolling, investigations, and community engagement. Improve expertise. Civilians often bring specialized skills in areas like information, technology, forensics, data analysis, social work, or communications that complement law enforcement efforts. And enhance public relations. Civilian positions such as community liaisons or public information officers can strengthen relationships between the department and the community by improving communication and accessibility. So the folks at Northwestern, when we write this study, they want us, based on our research, to add or include 3 possible solutions to your study. And so the solutions that I came up with, the first one being we'd stay status quo. We wouldn't add any additional sworn officers, there would be no deputy chief, and there would be no increase in civilian support staff. The next step would be the moderate expansion, where we would add 2 sworn officers and create a deputy chief position and increase civilian support staff by 1 member. And the significant expansion in the third option, which my numbers got all messed up there, I apologize. It says add 4 sworn officers, create a deputy chief's position, and increase civilian support staff by 2 members. So after looking at all the research that I looked at, I selected option number 2, or recommended option number 2. The moderate expansion would represent an optimal balance between addressing staffing needs and maintaining fiscal responsibility. By adding 2 sworn officers, the department can enhance its patrol coverage and response capabilities, potentially reducing response times and improving community safety. This incremental increase allows for better distribution of workload among officers, which can help reduce overtime costs and alleviate officer burnout. And I touch on the deputy chief's position under this option. It would be a strategic move that can significantly improve the department's operational efficiency and leadership structure. And lastly, adding 1 civilian support staff member would provide essential administrative assistance without substantially increasing personnel costs. And this addition can help streamline administrative processes, allowing sworn officers to concentrate on law enforcement duties. Now, in the report, when you read it, there's a page or 2 where it says for approval by Chief Senni. We're not trying to sneak something by you. The people at Northwestern, that was part of the study. I forgot to remove that, so just so there's no confusion. But that's a brief overview of my study. So,
Well, first of all, I appreciate you taking the training. I hope you benefited from it.
sure did.
And I thank you for doing this. I think this is the second evaluation of the PD I've had done since mayor. I was the mayor and the current mayor. And I think it's a good fresh set of eyes that looks at it from a different perspective. One was from an external source and this is from an internal. So you usually get different results and some things do overlap. Can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do any of those different municipalities have K-9 units? I didn't see that reported in here.
They did not tell me they did, so I can't tell you for sure. I didn't specifically ask that.
Okay. I see that you have a civilian recommendation. Did you do that for the other municipalities, and do you feel it'd be beneficial if we did that as well as a carry-on to this study?
So are you asking if?
Like, look at the 2 full-time personnel we have at our PD, is that adequate? And then should we do a comparison of other municipalities on a similar process?
I mean, that would probably be beneficial. I noticed in there when I was talking about Mendota, I didn't put what they had down, and I can follow up with them and see what they had. I don't know if I just forgot to add that, but it seems like at least everybody had 2, if I remember correctly, in some capacity. So yeah, my recommendation would be if we could add another one. Yeah.
Do you think it'd be beneficial if we added this study what the crime rate is for each municipality?
So
I believe we're very safe, correct?
we are very safe.
That's a compliment to you and the other officers in the room and other members of our unit, right?
So, absolutely. So some of the other formulas do account for crime rate and times of crime. But what I noticed is a lot of the agencies that use that formula, they're huge departments. Like the lady who taught us resource allocation, I believe she used to be a captain with Lakewood Springs, Colorado. And so we're talking hundreds of officers. So it would benefit them greatly because, you know, they could say, okay, the day shift, we're gonna run with 60 officers and, you know, they have the officers that they can kind of play with. Where here, we got 15, we're on 12s, we're kind of limited to that. But, I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I do appreciate it. My post-it note said, you know, we did have an officer that we had put on leave. We did have one that was on active duty and one that was injured off the work time. So I do appreciate you for actually putting that in the report because I think that's valuable, right? That might explain some of the numbers. May not explain everything. And then I guess my last question before I have council jump in here. I know this doesn't have a resource component to it. Do you think maybe another step would be to look at and evaluate our resources across our police department to see if we have enough resources, whether it be equipment or other things that we need, including training, since you're the sergeant in charge of training? Do you think that would be another beneficial? We layered something on there. One of your other sergeants in their studies, maybe look at that as well, or somebody else in the police department, including the chief?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. I do appreciate this. I rely on the chief's recommendation. So I know that was a project. I'll let him meet with me another time just to see what some of our options are. Some of this, I will tell you, probably has been talked about before. So I'm not surprised to see this come up, and I think it's just something that we would consider to looking long-term for our growth. Okay, sure. So questions for Sergeant Whitecotton?
I just have a comment. To reiterate what the mayor said, I appreciate you going through the effort. Well put together, and seems like you got a lot out of that source, so.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Make sure you disconnect whoever's got that up. All right, we'll now move on to our council reports. Alderman Arnett.
So I want to let everyone know the 410 was delivered, and our old one was picked up, and the guys are out working on street signs right now, since we don't have snow, street signs and maintenance in the shop. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Erickson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderwoman Johnson.
We've had quite a bit of discussion in the Finance Committee about the responsibilities that have been put on our lawyer at her door and their firm. Whether or not we can allocate that to our committees or this council, mainly because the bills. And I just, I think that we would like a little more definition, a better definition of what exactly, I mean, is there anything that is not going to our lawyer at this point? Because there's some feelings that everything is being looked over and maybe unnecessarily, I don't know, that we can.
Can you give an example? When I came, I heard FOIAs, right? So people that file FOIAs, it is their legal right, but there's sometimes a cost of that, right?
Absolutely.
As a personnel matter, we have to send it to the attorney. If it's something that maybe requires some kind of research, it's sent to the attorney. That's the safe thing to do on our side for our responsibility. So I did hear FOIAs. Was there another area that I maybe wasn't aware of?
Yes. Well, no, it's everything. Our recent bills were pretty extensive, and I understand, I mean, there's land, there's all sorts of things
That
that
includes
she has to
the
do.
electoral board in there.
Yes, oh, I know, and I
So
mean,
very
that
costly
also
process.
arbitration and everything else that we're doing, it's not just Cassandra and not just their firm. The agenda is a big deal. I don't know when the agenda went to our lawyer.
The agenda?
Has it always gone to her?
Yeah, the attorneys typically include it on the agenda to make sure that there's anything on there that requires a legal opinion or review, that we receive that.
And a lot of times it's for making sure that it's properly worded to comply with OMA so that it can be voted on.
Okay,
It's always gone to the attorney as far as I know.
awesome. And, yeah, I guess we're just, there are a lot of questions about, is there anything we can do differently within our council or within our staff that we might be able to talk more about instead of calling or emailing your lawyer at every turn?
Well, lots of people call our attorney other than me or our staff, right?
Oh, I agree.
Council does, I know you call the attorney.
Mhm.
So maybe.
And that's, I mean, and I understand reviewing the bills, right? And that is your job. I think that I answer the phone. I respond to the emails as soon as I can. I think you can see that I'm busy. Like, I'm doing a lot of things, like, all the time. And then I guess the only other thing is that our rates are significantly discounted. Our rates are the same that they were in 2013 when the firm came on.
We've had some costs too with some of our processes with our properties. That requires court time too.
Thank you. Thank you for answering.
I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it, I'm just saying that it's easy to see why the costs are what they are. When you look at the agenda and you have developer agreement, you have the annexation, you have a planning commission issue, and you have an ordinance that all costs us. But hopefully it makes us better as a community. Okay,
all I
anything else,
have.
Rebecca?
But
That's all I
I'm
have.
happy to, if there's things that you guys don't want me to be doing, let me know. I want to work with you guys and make sure that you guys are happy with what you're getting.
Well, I think too, the council should probably talk amongst themselves about what we can do to take the load off. And maybe it's a little, we're just reaching out at every whim instead of figuring out what we can do on our own. That's all. But thank you very much.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, the finance committee
if
certainly
I
can go
may,
through the
from my
bills.
perspective, I've tried to limit how often I contact. But obviously, we have had contact, but I've tried to limit as much as I could. I only contacted when I felt like I needed to, so.
I contact her a lot because everything flows through me, right? From people to businesses to issues. Many times I have to see if there's a reason that we need to do something or not do something.
And I know you already have a million things to do. For us, what we're seeing and what's actually happening, we get this awesome diagram from Chief. Here's where this is going, and this is the time, how much I've spent here, how much I've spent doing this. And as far as our public is concerned, it would be really helpful for us to know your pie chart, like how much time are you really spending on FOIAs? How much time are you spending on litigation? It's, because
I
all
do
we
know-
see is this end number, and it's hard for us to understand what's
So
going
we
on.
originally did not break out FOIAs on the legal billing. That has been changed since I've been the mayor to very clearly state the time we spent on FOIAs, plus other things. The election issue was on there. Some of the mitigation with our properties were broken down there, so we can clearly see where some of that's going to, or before it might have just been billable hours.
Do you get the full bill? I mean, it's like
I get
lots of pages.
I get many bills, yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
was
no,
gonna
it's
say-
not just one bill. I mean, and what the public sees is different than what I see, I mean,
Okay.
they'll have just the total.
Right, because some of them are pending
yeah.
litigation.
Yeah, because, I go by, all my entries are by the time, like minimum 0.25.
I think a lot of it too is that what we're hearing and seeing too is that, like, for the FOIAs, the people in the office are doing the FOIAs, and then you're doing the FOIAs, so we're double dipping. We're paying 2 different people or 3 different people to do the same thing. Yeah, you're doing it legally, and they're doing it, getting it, but we're paying 2 other people to do it. Why?
I can tell you that, and I don't even know if it's come through, so be on the lookout for this one. There was one FOIA that I had to do that was 1,200 pages of documents that required redactions, because we also do have an obligation to protect our citizens. So when you, and not you, but someone out in the city emails you about something, their private information needs to be redacted to protect them. And so there's the, 7.1 or 7.5 of the FOIA Act for exemptions and certain things that can be redacted. So it's that, and then making sure that you're getting all of the documents.
And I understand like something like that, but if it's just and I know they're not just simple. don't get
I was
me
gonna say,
wrong,
most of our
I'm-
FOIAs are
I'm
not
gonna-
simple.
But if there is like a simple one, why should it have to come through you whenever I feel that we have her and him too, well, he's not really doing them anymore, but, to do that, I mean, that's what they're paid for. That's
I mean,
what
I
they're
would
paid to do.
say that most of the simple ones, like the actual simple ones, aren't coming to me. But the ones that are for a personnel file or things like that,
I mean, it
or
just seems
the
stiff that-
request to the Attorney General for review and things like that, that is 100% me if it goes to the Attorney General.
Oh, yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely that. I mean, I just think it's pretty stiff, almost $4,000 we're paying you for FOIAs and all, when we've paid her to do the same thing almost, except you're looking it over in a legal thing, I get that. But we've already paid her, I mean, we might as well just make you our FOIA officer. I mean, let's be real. I mean, why double dip? That's where I'm getting at. I mean, we're spending the city's money on two different people.
I mean, part of the problem is I obviously don't know where the documents are.
I
And so.
understand that, but that's where a lot of that's
Yeah.
coming from. That's
And
what we
I
talked about
will
today.
say, I'm not sure what the period is for the bill that you're looking at. I think that it may be
Yeah,
a
it doesn't
little
say in
bit,
here.
it was broken up weird because of the electoral board hearing and stuff like that. So it might have more of the last month than normal. I can't recall exactly what the time frame is on it, so I'm just not sure if it is.
I really, honestly, I just appreciate you speaking to it, because there are questions every time, and, you know, people want to know.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess, good or bad, I mean, I'm happy to take the calls and to talk about it, but, I am working on a breakdown of the FOIA by, like, number, because I do try to protect everyone's privacy, because parts of my bills can be subject to FOIA too. So I don't get, down in the weeds and, email with, Alderwoman Karst Erickson about da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so it is probably a little generic, but, I mean, if you look at, I have a database, we use NetDocuments to keep all of our documents, all of our emails. And so, I mean, I could look that up right now and you'd probably be shocked how many new records I create for the city of Sandwich in a 30-day period.
Thank you. Well, that's all I have for tonight.
Great, thank you. Alderman Littlebrand.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Alderman Wycott.
The only thing I have for this meeting is, I hate to beat a dead horse, but 724 North Main. I want to talk about that a little bit. My feeling is the property should be secured right now. We own it.
Well, no.
Well, you said we could demolish it right now.
We have authority over the property. We do not own it. He is still the title owner.
But we can demolish it.
Yes.
Can through the proper steps.
Yeah, we have to go out to bid. I thought we did that.
I have nothing, no bids. This should be a priority for the city of Sandwich. We spend a lot of money for the city, with a lot of legal fees, and I know it takes that. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and we ask our citizens, who probably called every one of us in here, be patient, it takes time. Now, we have it. Now we should strike right now and get that that eyesore off of Main Street. That's just my opinion. We've been working to this point, and I don't know why we don't have a quote yet.
I agree.
I have a quote, but we need to go out to bid.
Yeah. we can go out to
I
bid.
mean, I have a quote, but that
I
doesn't
don't
give us
mean a
what we
quote.
need.
I think we need to get a quote from a qualified.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's
Person.
over
I don't think we can get a quote.
25,000, we
We
gotta
have
go
to
to
go
bid
out.
unless
Right.
we're gonna waive that.
Through the cost.
I'm sorry?
I said I don't think a quote is proper. I think we're going to have to go out to bid because of the cost of the whole process. I think, Rick, what held things up was the court filing that we were uncertain if it was.
No, I understand
Appropriate.
totally, but we're at that point now where I think
Oh, yep,
we should move.
Yep, I already told Jeff we need to go out for bid, and I talked with Don today about the process too. Totally agree. It's time to move forward, and I did need to find out, and so that's probably one of my bills, is to figure out legally when that court finally took place, what steps we needed to take, and what was legal with that, or was it going to delay us, and what we could and couldn't do.
Well, and it is a little complicated, right? Because like you said, we own it. And like that is we get to decide, right? But we aren't the owners of the property. And he's still technically the owner of the property, and the interplay of those obligations and rights really do come into play. So I can appreciate that.
But we have the right to demolish it now.
We've got the order.
And even after we demolish it, there'll still be processes we have to go through, and there'll be some legal costs before we can totally be free of the property issues.
But at least it won't be sitting there. Be a nice empty lot, so. Yeah, that's all I have for this meeting, thank you.
Okay. Old business. So Jeff has approached me a couple times over the last probably year or more, that since he's now been in this position for a period of time. I think it's proper that I bring the council some additions to the code. That would be to further clarify his responsibilities as the administrator, as well as some of the authorities that he would hold with that position. He's not a manager, we're not that type of government, but I'll be bringing to you at the next meeting some things that you want to consider, and if you do like that, then we'll roll it into an ordinance that further just clarifies. There's really nothing in the code, because this is a new position other than his job description, which clearly states what he's supposed to do, but there are some authorities that we just probably want to further clarify that would maybe be typical of an administrator that would be in the code, that would be some assurances to them and clarify what they're responsible for. That's all. Probably about a page and a half document, I would think, is probably what we're going to look at. So that will come back to you. We'll come to you next meeting for review. We've already covered all of our new business. I don't have any announcements on our committee of the whole. Audience comments, I have one, unless there's another. All right, Sandra Kohler.
That was all moved to the beginning.
That's all done. We moved all the new business. Yeah, so we don't have any of those, so those are all taken care of.
Thank you.
Godwin. Sandra, what coming up?
I was just making sure y'all were done talking, trying to figure out where we were at.
Appreciate that. When you're ready?
Couple of things. The reason we write FOIAs and get attacked about writing FOIAs every time we walk in this room is because we can't get the information any other way. Some of the FOIAs that I have wrote were simple, actually. I was asking for the invoices of certain bills that had to go through 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Why does the attorney have to look at an invoice, especially her own, to make sure that there's nothing wrong on it or something we should not see? We all know the names of people and addresses, the names it takes 10 minutes to take out, but I do know that Jeff or the city administrator, since we're not supposed to directly point out people, know how to black out names. I do know that on the last attorney bill I got, where I finally got a breakdown, multiple calls and emails a day by someone who is supposed to be good at their job. Part of their job is supposed to be physically helping our city. Part of their job is to know financial responsibility and how the mechanics of a city works. When you don't know that, you don't pick up the phone and call the attorney. If you have questions, write them down. At the end of the day, send an email. That's one that it takes her 15 minutes to read, instead of 15 that by her own admission she charges no less than 0.25, which is $52.50, I believe, according to the last invoice I got, for her to look at each and every one. So in one day, this particular employee of the city, 12 different 5250s. Were they on the same subject? Were they phone calls? Could they have been addressed in emails where she could answer the email once? Because all three phases of the question would be in there. My problem with what the money that gets spent on the attorney is highly irregular if you look at the invoices broken down. I understand court cases. I understand that you have the right to refuse to do a FOIA if it's too overreaching. 1,200 or whatever it was she said about this one that's coming in that was very extensive. To me, that's a little overreaching. I usually ask for specifics. How many hours does someone work? What do they get paid? I have 2 more FOIAs, well, actually 3 FOIAs going in. Again, I haven't wrote one in a while. I've never involved the Attorney General. They're simple. There's no reason for any of the 3 that I'm writing to have to go to a lawyer. They're simple, stupid papers that any of you have. Invoice, time, and what in the heck are we paying per mile for our code enforcer? Because state says it's supposed to be 70 cents, and I'd be more than happy to give anybody a copy of that. We're paying him $1.50 an hour. I mean a mile, excuse me. State law, January 1st, was 70 cents per mile. And I will get you a copy. There's just things that are completely overreaching as far as finances go in this town, and I want to see a change. We spent a whole lot of time tonight, and I'll end at that, talking about, Adam was talking about the fair winds. Well, we all knew from the moment the conversation started that it shouldn't have been on the agenda in the first place because it was incomplete. It wasn't done. It wasn't ready to present to anybody here, which Adam pointed out. Every time he read a line, it was, but we don't have this, but we don't have. Why are we sitting here talking about it for a half hour? Wasting time. She gets paid by the hour, minimum $500 every time she walks into the city of Sandwich. So why don't y'all stop wasting time in council meetings and talk about what's important?
All right, thank you. All right, Becky Nelson.
So during the finance meeting, I made some comments, pretty much echoes what Sandy just mentioned about fiduciary obligations, and just want to kind of go off that. And in my opinion, what we have here is you've got a law firm, you've got a consulting firm for accounting, finance, and then you have a plan administrator. And it is not the person in those desks that I have a concern with. It's the actual process, okay? And what I mean by that is, if you have a FOIA process and you have that person who is a FOIA officer, black and white FOIAs don't have to go to your attorney. And if a redaction needs to be done, then that person needs to be educated in their job to be able to conduct that redaction to avoid exposing names. And that can be very simple by taking some FOIA classes. I believe that our clerk is very seasoned in FOIA. She has years and years and years, and probably many, many dead trees experience with FOIA. And I believe that a plan administrator, no matter who's sitting in that desk, should absolutely have experience and education with how to do a FOIA. Because yes, it is absolutely correct. A municipal lawyer runs anywhere from $387 an hour to $616. You can look that up. So at the end of the day, we have to start reeling it in and taking accountability for those roles and those actions that are given to us. And so if you have a plan administrator who doesn't want to do FOIAs anymore, that doesn't mean we go straight to the lawyer for $616 an hour. If that's the case, then the plan administrator is being overpaid. And it's simple as that. It's numbers. It's not people. It's not personalities. It's the role of that person. It's the dollar amounts that the desk generates and spends. And that's what I'm here to talk about. Is you just have to start looking at these numbers. And when they push back and they say, well, that's, our rate is 2013, I think the quote was. My husband took a job in the oil field back in 2010 when the economy took a crap. We went out there and he says, yeah, I'm going to work in the oil field. It's $16 an hour. And I was like, how are we going to make it? Unlimited hours. They don't stop you. You can work 100 hours a week if you want to. And he did. And when you don't have any boundaries or barriers or some sort of an understanding, a contract, things can get out of control. And I really think there are plenty of capable people in this room that could be handling those duties, including OMA. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's your agenda, that's your minutes, that's your things that go before the board, okay? And if it's not right, then someone on this board who's just as educated can just make a motion to correct it. So again, use the people that have been elected and hired or appointed in these seats to do the job so that we can take the burden off the taxpayers. That's my comment tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to make a public comment? All right, we'll move on with the agenda. Last item is a motion for adjournment of the committee of the whole meeting.
Todd, wait, just 1 second, seriously. On the back here, there's 3 things that we did not go over. It says discussion of airport ordinance, discussion of utility late fee, and discussion of ordinance just to add stop signs at Fairwinds.
Are you on the regular council meeting?
No, committee of the whole.
What's the date on that one? That might have been an earlier version.
It says January 20th?
That may have been an earlier version. That's not the one that went out, that was published.
The one I have says.
Okay, so should we discuss this stuff or not? I mean,
Well, it's what's posted on the website. Yeah, I mean, we can't talk about where we want, it's the committee of the whole.
move to the next. I mean,
Would you like to talk about any of those things?
You have the discussion of the developer agreement for Fairwinds, the pre-annexation agreement for Gleddy.
Yeah, I have all that under new business. This was above it was under old business after discussion of city administrator ordinance.
Certainly, we can discuss them. Which one would you like
I've
to
got
take
something
first?
completely different. The one that was emailed to me under old business only has city administrator ordinance, so I don't even have those.
Yeah, and the one that was posted is the one that I have that doesn't have those. We can certainly talk about them. What's the first topic you have?
The discussion of airport ordinance.
Yep, so I think the last thing we looked at was the heights that were required by different angles and setbacks. I don't believe it was ready to come to council yet, but it was something we wanted to look at. I know Don's been talking with the owner of the property to see what we can do, as well as I think he had a conversation with the airport owner, just to make sure they understood where we were going with that before we took any action. So it's overly immense property. I think the biggest issue is if that ordinance is no longer relevant, then it opens up the different uses of that property, which we may want to consider. It's from 1979. The airport was used much differently then. It was an active airport, had skydivers in it at one point. A lot of things flew in and out of there. So I guess the question is has that changed, and should we look at changing our ordinance either by deleting it or by making amendments to that to make the property more conducive and desirable? Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is discussion of utility late fee.
That was Alderman White Cotton, so I don't know why that's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I didn't put it on there, but I've been working with Alderman Fritsch on some ideas, so we'll bring it up next one.
Okay.
And then the next one was just discussion of ordinance to add stop signs at Fairwinds.
Yes, the chief had submitted that to the attorney. I think the reason that probably came off is, one, we can't put them up because of the weather. We wanted to make sure we had those right. We had the resident that asked about looking at another location, and we wanted to make sure that we had that included. And then I believe that comes back to you for review, first meeting in February, passes the second.
Thank you.
Yep. So I think some of the things just kind of got pulled back.
Thank you.
Yep, anything else?
There was a draft earlier in the week that had all those things on it, and then as we got closer to the meeting date, we just didn't have the information, so they came off.
Okay.
Yeah, the stop signs are important because those also have to be flagged before they can be permanently put in and take effect. So we wanted to make sure all those were correct, including the one that the resident brought up. That required the chief to go back out and do another survey of that after the first one, so we wanted to make sure that that was correct.
And then I just needed to make sure that I knew which part of the road the stop sign was going on, so I can make it clear in our ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
A motion.
Second.
Alderwoman Johnson, second by Alderwoman Erickson. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, committee holds adjourned. We'll take a quick recess and come right back for our regular meeting.